Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Steve Rippelos and the band. It's a lovely day. Let's get started. I'm Mike Husband, Executive Director of the expanded ProRodeo Hall of Fame, which we had the honor of dedicating just this morning. And I'd like to extend a very warm welcome on behalf of the staff and the Board of Trustees of the ProRodeo Hall of Fame. Invite and welcome you to this very special event. It's your hall, it's for you, it's about you, and we're very honored by your presence today. This is a proud day for the Hall of Fame. It's a great moment for rodeo. And for those rodeo legends here today who joined a very select group called Hall of Famers, we hope that this is one of your finest hours, for you, for your families, for your friends. I'd like to remind you that immediately following the proceedings this morning, we invite you to have lunch with us in the tent in the new courtyard, courtesy of our friends at Original Coors. In just a moment, the Pikes Peak Range Rider Pivots will host the colors. Please remain standing following the presentation of the colors. Our national anthem will be sung by Lila Moray, and following the anthem, Harry Hole will give the invocation. Gentlemen.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets rang out, the bombs bursting in air gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
The Fred Atkinson, the Fellowship of Christian Cowboys has arrived. He will be delivering the invocation. Brad?
Let's bow together in prayer. Father, thank you for this beautiful morning, the privilege to be in this country where we have the freedom to sing that anthem, to look to this flag and the freedom that you blessed us with for so long. Father, we recognize that that freedom is based in Jesus Christ and that personal walk with you. So we just ask that we might glorify you as we continue to participate in the sport of rodeo. We thank you for these for being inducted today, the safety you've given them through all the years that they've rodeo combined. Thank you for those that take that stand to love you and to participate in this great sport with all of their ability while glorifying you and respectful to others. So we thank you for all that you have for us today. We ask that you be glorified in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you, Brad. Thank you, Lila, and thank you, Pikes Peak Range Riders Pivots. Now it's a great pleasure to present to you the President of the Board of Trustees of the ProRodeo Hall of Fame and the Commissioner of the Professional Rodeo Cowboys Association, Commissioner Luke Cryer.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a most glorious day and a glorious celebration. It's been a tumultuous year of excitement. The association and the Hall of Fame have had the greatest year they've ever had. We stood here a year ago, and so many of you have heard me say this now because this will be the 13th different function as we dedicated the expansion of the facilities. We stood here a year ago and made the announcement that we were breaking ground after these ceremonies to expand the Hall of Fame and expand the ProRodeo Cowboys Association National Headquarters. 2 days short of a year ago, we stand here today, and that project has been dedicated this morning at 8:30. And our pledge to you was at the time that we would fund it, and it has been funded. It's a tremendous tribute to an awful lot of people who are in love with the sport of rodeo and committed to its future and its success. And again and again and again, we continue to thank you because it's been a tremendous ride and it's a great accomplishment. Today, we are here to honor greatness. We are here to honor those who are the best of the best. They have been selected by the committee as I chair to represent the sport in the year of 1996. Last night, we had a special evening of the families of the inductees and the inductees. And we tried to make it special for them to initiate the weekend so that when they leave here, they leave these ceremonies and they leave Colorado Springs, they leave with memories that will be with them for the rest of their lives. As we told them last night, the Hall of Fame is a chamber of memories. It is a collection of success. And when you're honored by your peers, as you will be today, it brings to the total around 140 individuals and animals, and you recognize the hundreds of thousands of men and women who have participated in this sport. To be honored takes on a very special meaning. When the ceremonies are concluded today, they will forever be known as Hall of Famers. It's like a world's championship. You're never a former world champion, you're always a world champion. And when you become a Hall of Famer, that's a title that goes before you for the rest of your lives. We know that it's special for the families, and we know it's special for the inductees. On behalf of all of them, I want to extend a very special thank you for you all being here today and share this special day with them. One of the elements of the rodeo business that we could not be without, and that's our rodeo committees. Several years ago, when we restarted these induction ceremonies, we made a decision that we should have a way of honoring the rodeo committees that provide so much for the rodeo industry. They not only provide the venue, they provide an amount of the prize money, they hire the stock contractors, they hire the contract personnel, and they provide an opportunity for great athletes to compete. So each year we've been honoring one rodeo committee. And this year we honor the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo for Houston, Texas. Second only to the National Finals Rodeo in prize money. If you've never been there, you haven't experienced a happening. The Houston Rodeo is a happening. It's something you should all see at some time or other. And I would like to call at this time Jim Bloodworth, President of the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo, forward, as I would like to present him with his recognition plaque. The plaque shall read, March 1932 marked the beginning of the Houston Fat Stock Show and Exposition. The Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo, as it is known, is the largest livestock show and rodeo in the world. The rodeo added in 1938 and now held in the Astrodome draws top professional cowboys and matches them with the rodeo's toughest stock. For 2 weeks in early spring, an epidemic of Go Texan strikes Houston as more than 2,000 volunteers ensure a smooth running show, grand entertainment, and agricultural educational opportunities. The ProRodeo Hall of Fame recognizes the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo, Houston, Texas, for its pioneering effort, continuing support of the sport of professional rodeo, presented on this 10th day of August, 1996. Jim?
Thank you, Commissioner and friends. It's a great privilege for me today to accept this honor on behalf of our officers, directors, and 11,000 committee volunteers who make up the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo. Today, with me are several members of our officer corps, their wives, Dan Gaddis, our general manager, and a couple of his management team. I would like for them to stand and be recognized at this time. They're the people who make this possible. Will you guys stand? Thank you. As the newly elected president of the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo, I'm charged with leading truly a world-class charity and entertainment event. Today, my new job gives me the opportunity to meet with some of the greatest talents assembled today into a sport that I'm personally committed. As a former calf roper who was not quite good enough to make it pay, I've always held in high regards the cowboys who make their living in the sport of rodeo. Cowboys are passionate about what they do, and we are also passionate in Houston, Texas. We have one primary goal when it comes to putting on our rodeo presentation, and that is to give rodeo fans the very best that this sport has to offer. Right now, we're paying out over $700,000 to rodeo athletes, making our show, as the commissioner just noted, one of the largest regular paying season rodeos. We're generally proud of these strides we've made to reach our goals, and because of our success, we've had opportunities and honors like these today. But more important than all of our honors is the privilege we've had to work with rodeo competitors. The rodeo competitors have stood by us, they supported us, and helped us give back to our community. Rodeo cowboys take part in our exceptional rodeo program for some really, truly special kids. The rodeo cowboys meet and greet and talk with many of the inner city kids in Houston, Texas, many who have never met or talked to a real cowboy. In May this year, our show presented 117 $10,000 four-year scholarships to high school area Houston students. If you're counting, that's over $1 million. In May of this year, I had the honor of presenting 100 four-year $10,000 scholarships to FFA and 4-H students across the state of Texas. This year in all, we were able to give over $4.2 million to educational programs and scholarship programs that will benefit students from all over the state of Texas. They will be attending college and universities of their choice. I believe, along with the other 11,000 volunteers who make our show possible, that our work is important work, and that our work really makes the difference in the life of young people. For all of those, I want to thank the rodeo competitors, their families, and those who have helped make professional rodeo the tremendous sport it is today. I thank you, John Burke, Tommy Steiner, Gary Allen, John Jones, Charlie Sampson, and Scamper for allowing me and the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo to share your day in the sun. Thank you very much.
Our induction ceremonies will first begin with the induction of Scamper, timed event horse. The introduction will be made by Dr. Robert Patterson, Doctor of Veterinary Medicine. Dr. Patterson.
Thank you, Commissioner Cryer. Ladies and gentlemen, we've all heard the story about the kid that was so bad that his parents sent him to school one day, moved and left no forwarding address. This scenario could have happened with Scamper, born Gills Bay Boy by Walter Draper's Ranch in Wedmore, Colorado. From the very beginning in 1977, this wiry little bay colt resisted every attempt at domestication. He went through owners faster than a tumbleweed can go through the Texas Panhandle. 5 owners in less than 2 years, and not a one of them were very pleased until he met the last one. None of them, but that last one, could put up with the shenanigans that may well have earned him a place in the Guinness Book of World Records much earlier. In 1982, he crossed paths with an 11-year-old girl from Clayton, New Mexico, named Charmaine James, who was already beginning a successful barrel racing career. For a while, it was an outright war of wills between this girl and a 5-year-old bronc. But compromises on both sides led to a bonding of these two country kids that knew no bounds. After a short, very successful career in amateur rodeo, the two were on their way into professional rodeo. Their debut into the big time was nothing short of sensational. With 1984 winnings of over $53,000, Charmaine was named WPRA Rookie of the Year with practically a clean sweep of special titles such as Wrangler Series Champion, Dodge Series Champion, Fast Time at the NFR, NFR Average Champion, and the ultimate title of World Champion Barrel Racer. Not a bad start for a skinny little girl and a reject feedlot horse from nowhere. However, the accomplishments of the barrel racing dream team were not without complications. Due to kind of a rocky start in the feedlot business, Scamper began his rodeo career with some significant medical problems that prompted one veterinarian to urge Charmaine to find another horse. He had a large non-healing fracture in his right hock, a significant bone spur in his left knee, and an early ring bone in his left pastern. Any one of these conditions have ended many careers for performance horses, but not so for this tough little bay horse. Charmaine's dedication and focus on caring for Scamper through all of his medical problems has been nothing short of sensational. She became extremely adept at recognizing his problems early and calling for help. With the assistance of her traveling partner, Mom Gloria, there were countless roadside stops to give Scamper his ultrasound therapy, his turbulator therapy, or his laser therapy. Her trailer looked like a mobile veterinary clinic, complete with an oxygen therapy unit. But this tough little bay horse received fewer drugs in his 14-year-long career than most horses receive in a single year of competition. Charmaine learned to rely on conditioning and physical therapy to replace those drugs. As Scamper's veterinarian, I received more than a few telephone calls from Charmaine in the middle of the night with some real problems that can happen when you travel 100,000 miles a year. I remember one specifically. She called from Saratoga one night about 2 o'clock in the morning. She said that she had run off the road and turned over her rig. Scamper was pinned in the trailer. She looked in there with a flashlight and she could see him standing on the top of the inverted trailer, bleeding from the head and the withers. A cutting torch was able to get him out of that trailer, but not until he had finished eating his hay. With a few medical applications and a new rig, the team went on to Ellensburg, Washington to win first at the rodeo the same day. Once again, he proved that he was not bound by rules that normal horses follow. In 1990, Scamper had a major slab fracture in that knee that had been a problem since he started his career. Charmaine was able to manage this fracture for 14 months to go ahead and win the championship that year, but she also knew that it was in his best interest to correct that fracture. A major surgery was scheduled for the day following yet another first place win at the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo. The surgery was uneventful, but the recovery that should have taken 5 to 6 months was amazingly complete in about 70 days. Charmaine started riding him and was back in contention for the championship in 1991. Once again, Scamper was not bound by the rules. One of his amazing little specialties was making spectacular entrances into the arena, thrilling crowds and keeping Charmaine on alert for just about anything. The entire rodeo world will not forget the 1985 NFR when he spun into the concrete wall prior to going into the arena, tearing the screw out that held the headstall under the bit. The tension mounted as he turned the first barrel and the headstall flopping wildly about. He turns the second barrel with the bit falling out of his mouth and turns the third barrel with that bit looking every bit like a necklace. We all remember that run because Charmaine was able to hustle that horse through that round to win the go-round and also to win another championship. If you think that's a common occurrence, I don't think so. It was rather spectacular. With Charmaine in the saddle, this little bay horse with the huge heart has become the greatest rodeo horse of all time. The list of championships is an unbelievable accomplishment. 26 series championships: Wrangler, Dodge, Coors, Winston, Copenhagen Skull, Crown Royal. 5 circuit championships, 5 times AQHA Barrel Racing Horse of the Year, 6 times NFR Average Champion, 10 times Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo Champion, and best of all, ladies and gentlemen, 10 consecutive World Barrel Racing titles. Scamper and Charmaine, what you have done for the world of professional rodeo will never be forgotten. Our hats are off. Thank you.
The flag shall read, Scamper, time to event horse. The name is apt. The description of the legendary barrel race horse is AQH name. It is Gills Bay Boy, purchased for $1,100 by an owner rider named Charmaine James. Scamper began his record-setting career as a rookie in 1984. He has now taken James past the $1 million mark in earnings on the road to 10 World Championships from 1984 to 1994. 5 times AQHA WPRA Barrel Race Horse of the Year. He also won the prestigious 1992 AQHA Silver Spur Award, reserved for quarter horses that bring special notice and fame to the breed. Scamper semi-retired in 1993, although as recently as March of 1996, he won $8,000 at the Houston Rodeo, one of his favorites. Over his career, he has earned over $136,010 championships at that Texas rodeo. Gelding dominated barrel racing for 10 years, and without a doubt, he's the best known and most successful barrel horse that ever lived. James once described him as beyond great. Ladies and gentlemen, Scamper, time to that horse.
This is a great honor to be here. I'm not great on speeches, but I can't think of anything that would be any better to give a speech for is for Scamper. It has been just incredible over the years what Scamper has gone on and done. You know, when things were as bad as they could be, Scamper always picked up and pulled through, and it's just amazing, the heart and the try and the love for rodeo and running barrels. And I'd like to thank Dr. Patterson for coming today and being here with me, and without him, Scamper wouldn't be where he probably is. I wouldn't be where I'm at. My mom and dad are here, and my sister and my niece, and all my relatives are here, and I'd like to thank them for coming and being here with Scamper. And Bob was mentioning a few stories about Scamper, but the feeling that riding Scamper when you get to a rodeo and you get on him and you're just thinking, I'm riding the greatest horse that ever lived, and you can't really put that feeling in words. And anyway, it's a great honor to be here, and thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, our next induction.
It's really a pleasure for me to introduce John Burke from Casper, Wyoming, as a notable inductee this year. As many of you know, John was one of the original 5 founders of the hall 17 years ago. His bust of John is in the hallway here as you enter the hall. John is 78 years old. He was born in Long Beach, California. His wife, Mary, and he has a son, Pat, and a daughter, Kathleen, and numerous grandchildren. John has been a sheep man all his life. At 14 years old, he was running a lambing camp. At 15, he was pulling sheep from Casper up to the Bighorn Mountains, about a 10-day trip. He is now owner of the Burke Sheep Company. John first got mixed up in rodeo when he was appointed to the Central Wyoming Fair Board in 1954. For years, he was on the rodeo committee at Casper and always personally gave a .30-30 rifle to the winner of the saddle bronc riding. John's list of awards and accomplishments are as long as a well rope. In rodeo, he received the notable RCA Award of Merit. He was the PRCA Man of the Year. He was the RCA He was on the RCA Rodeo Information Committee, on the RCA Rodeo Advisory Committee, on the Hall of Fame Board of Trustees, on the PRCA Properties Board of Directors. He was production manager at NFR, and he was a financial advisor to the PRCA. He received many civic awards. He was the Casper Ag Businessman of the Year. He was president of the Wyoming Wool Growers Association, president of the Production Credit Association, president of the Casper Chamber of Commerce, and he was a county commissioner for Patrona County for quite a few years. The commissioner told me he was going to have that train come through right while I was up here, and he kept his word. John retired several years ago, and he spent his time restoring old sheep camps and wagons. The chuck wagon, which is just beyond the tent out here, is courtesy of John Burke, and it is a work of art. I think everybody ought to take a look at it while they're here. John has always had a reputation of being a nice guy and a real gentleman. Some quotes that I've gathered over the years about John. T.J. Walters says, "I was at the college rodeo team at Casper, and John was always helping everybody out." Kay Blakely says, "John is just a plain nice guy. There's no other way to describe him." Sean Davis said, "John always did a great job at NFR, and it would have been hard to get started in Las Vegas without him." And the cowboy that was on the Casper Pro Tour team, Chris Lieber, said, "He always tried to help the sport. I have a world of respect for that gentleman." Kind of makes you wonder whether he's a candidate for the Hall or for sainthood. But I'll guarantee you it's not for sainthood, because I told John I was going to tell one story on him that his family will probably hate me for. Several years ago, John was in his 70s, and he was at a parish council meeting in Casper. He was speaking during a discussion, and a young guy about half his age got up and said he wanted to speak. John said, "Well, you're going to have to wait a minute, I have the floor." And this young man came up, got right in John's face, and he says, "I want the floor, and I want it now." So John hit him right between the eyes, just knocked him spread eagle out on the floor. And then to prove he was a gentleman, he walked up to him, stood over him and said, "Is that enough of the floor for you, mister?" John is unable to be here today due to a serious illness, but his daughter, Kathleen Gerard, will accept the plaque in his name. Kathleen.
For the plaque, she'll read, "Burke, a long-time Casper, Wyoming resident, has been involved in behind the scenes of professional rodeo for over 30 years. He has served on the RCA Rodeo Information Commission, the PRCA Properties and ProRodeo Hall of Fame Board of Directors. Along with the City of Casper and the Association, Burke sponsored the first Pro Tour Rodeo Finals and the Winston Tour Tryouts. He also was responsible for organizing the Casper outfit for the Winston Tour. As a member of the committee which developed the original contract to move the NFR to Las Vegas, it fell to Burke to coordinate the move of all the equipment and property used in the production of the NFR from Oklahoma City to Las Vegas. He then served as the first general manager of production for the NFR in Las Vegas and subsequently served in the management of the NFR through 1991. Burke was presented the RCA Award of Merit in 1969 and named the PRCA Man of the Year in 1982. Born February 17, 1918, Long Beach, California, John Burke, notable.
You need to step right up on the microphone, okay?
It's a great honor to be here today to thank you for my dad's behalf. When he was called in February on his birthday to be told that he had been given this award, he moved into his great managerial style to make sure we all understood exactly what we needed to do to let you know how much he appreciates this honor. Dad loves rodeo. He loves the energy, he loves the work, he loves the fun, he loves the arguments, but most of all, he loves all of you. And the gift you give him today is priceless. Thank you.
Our next inductee is Pete Logan, Contract Personnel. To make the introduction remarks, Joe Steiner.
Good morning. I'm here this morning to say a few words about my friend, the late Pete Logan, one of the great rodeo announcers of all time. He was always an inspiration to me, as well as to many others. He was one of my heroes. Every time I talked to Pete, I appreciated his good sense of humor. I am a life member of the ProRodeo Cowboys Association. Pete encouraged me and recommended me. Pete loved to write. He wrote many articles entitled "Calling It As It Is" for such publications as Rodeo News, World of Rodeo, and the Western Horseman. Pete wrote many commentaries for Paul Harvey, who quoted Pete many times on his regular ABC network radio program. In fact, on August the 1st, on Paul Harvey's noonday radio broadcast, he announced that Pete Logan would be inducted in the ProRodeo Hall of Fame in Colorado Springs on August the 10th. Pete worked in several movies and television series, as well as 14 years in radio over his long career of approximately 5 decades. Pete was the announcer when NBC made the first telecast of rodeo in the late 1950s, starring Roy Rogers and the Sons of the Pioneers. This telecast received a very high rating, estimated to have reached more than 40 million viewers. This was excellent public relations for the ProRodeo Cowboys Association. Pete was on the board of directors of the Rodeo Cowboys Association during the time Harley May was president, from 1957 to 1961. He was then nominated for the presidency of the association, but turned it down because of his busy schedule during those years. Pete always worked hard at representing rodeo in a very professional manner. He believed in announcing a rodeo in good taste, using proper grammar and making it a good, wholesome family entertainment. Pete worked our National Finals Rodeo 8 times, and he is the only announcer to ever announce the fast-moving statistical rodeo without an assistant. He also announced the Canadian National Finals. Pete Logan was behind the mic at the National Finals Rodeo in Oklahoma City back in 1967, when history was made by 2 other legends already enshrined in our Hall of Fame. That was the night Freckles Brown rode the unridden bull Tornado. Also enshrined in our Hall of Fame is another legend named Descent, the 6th-time Bucking Horse of the Year. Few people know that it was Pete Logan who gave the horse his name. This was in Great Falls, Montana in 1964, where Butler brothers, Jake and Lynn, had purchased some horses. One afternoon before the rodeo started there, Sonny Linger, who worked for Butler Brothers Rodeo Company out of Elk City, Oklahoma, yelled up to Pete, who was in the announcer's stand, that some of the broncs didn't have names. Pete nodded, and about that time, he heard and saw a big airliner making its descent into the Great Falls Airport. Pete yelled down to Sonny, "The yellow horse there, the Palomino, let's call him Descent." The name carried. Pete once told me that he estimated he had announced more than 30,000 hours of rodeo, and that he had logged over 3,000 hours in the air flying his own plane to rodeos, plus many thousands of miles driving his car during his career. Pete worked the majority of our rodeos across the country, as well as rodeos in Canada, many of the top major rodeos. When Pete was in his prime, his itinerary reminds me of the lyrics to a great American song that I love that goes something like this: "From the redwood forest to the Gulf Stream waters, from California to the New York Islands." Pete was there. In rodeo terminology, perhaps that means from Portland in Northern California to Houston, from the Los Angeles Coliseum to Madison Square Garden, from the Cow Palace to Chicago and Detroit, and from San Antonio and Fort Worth to Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. Ladies and gentlemen, Pete Logan was a world-class rodeo announcer. Gives me great pleasure this morning to introduce to you a lady, my friend, Pete's wife of many years, Audrey Logan.
Before I read the plaque, I have a letter to read to Audrey and to this audience. Good morning, Louis. Except for long-standing commitment, I will surely be with you for August 10 presentation honoring Pete Logan. And I know you and Pete would expect me to respect those commitments. Though the ProRodeo Hall of Fame will enshrine his name because of his long-time identification with rodeo, I will remember him also as a valued advisor and treasured friend. His shirt-sleeve counsel was invaluable to me and still is, as I tried to unravel complexities and make sense of them all. Somebody hug Audrey for me, everybody, if there's time. Respectfully, Mr. Paul Harvey. Pete Logan, contract personnel. Pete Logan had been a radio announcer for 10 years when he responded to an ad in the Hoofs and Horns magazine. He wanted announcer for the Black Hills Roundup July 4th. He got the job even though he'd never seen a rodeo before. The first job led to what Logan conservatively totaled as 30,000 hours behind the microphone. He announced the big ones: Boston Garden, Madison Square Garden, a record 10 times, and the NFR. Logan was chosen to announce the first NFR in 1959 beside Taylor. He was selected a total of 8 times for the event. Once in 1961, he handled the microphone solo. He also was selected to announce the first coast-to-coast live rodeo telecast, which originated from San Antonio, a Rodeo Logan contract for 35 years and nearly 600 performances. Hollywood beckoned for a while, with Logan playing parts in several Western series and 2 tailor-made roles, the rodeo announcers in the film Junior Bond and The Misfits. Pete Logan credited his long-lasting success in rodeo announcing to his years of training and experience in radio. He served on the Association Board of Directors from 1957 to 61. Born December 4th, 1915 in Junction, Illinois, he passed away October 1993. Ladies and gentlemen, Pete Logan, contract personnel.
Thank you. You're going to stay up here with me so I don't fall over?
You won't fall over. Put that right underneath there.
Okay, thank you.
Stand close to the mic so they can hear you.
Okay, I guess that's what we'll do.
You'll do great.
Yeah, first I want to say a heartfelt thanks to our family and friends that came from the 4 corners of the United States to be here today. Since this time is for Pete, I would like to quote his own words on 2 or 3 subjects. But first, for Pete, I would like to thank Joe Spivey for the 5 long years he never gave up on this project. And Wick Peth, Larry Mahan, Jimmy Schumacher, Jack Roddy, and Harley May. Thank you to the selection committee, and thank you to Pat Hildebrand for all her help and sincere encouragement. And from Pete, congratulations to all you inductees. It's a great honor to be going in with all of you. Now, from one of Pete's columns he wrote, and I quote, "Rodeo is so far removed from any other profession and so unreal when you tell someone about the fact that the cowboys do not get paid unless they win, no salary, no pension, just nothing unless they win. It's a very unique profession. The rodeo cowboys and stock contractors are indeed the last of their kind. Rodeo is a real slice of Americana, and I'm proud to have been a part of it," unquote. In 1991 at Oklahoma City, Clem McSpadden remarked, "Pete Logan said things over the microphone that we wanted to say, but never had enough guts to say them." And Pete has said, "I've had the reputation of always saying what I think, and I would like to think I am capable of thinking. I have been asked, what's it like to be a rodeo announcer? It has its rewarding moments when everything goes right. Then there are things that happen that send you home swearing you should have gone into another line of work." Now, what he's referring to here is they hire a professional to do the job, and then they'll stand behind you and tell you what to say. For example, there has been the committee man who, and I'm not on committee man today, please believe me. There has been the committee man who has a few worn out, tired jokes he wants you to share with the audience. And he stands behind you and keeps bringing them up, and when you ignore him, he votes against you at the next meeting. I recall one committee man who insisted on telling me over and over in each event what the previous announcer used to say at that point. After exhausting my patience, I finally turned off the microphone and said, quote, "This is Pete Logan, not me now. If you like what he said so much, why the hell did you hire me?" And that's when he needed the job. Oh, thank you very much. Thank you. Next, when posses were in vogue, there was always a director or a member's wife who tugged at your shirt sleeve as the riders crossed over 2 by 2 and keeps telling you they're in pairs. Whereupon you reply, "Lady, anybody who has enough sense to earn $6 to get in can count to 2. So forget whatever rodeo they represented. On rodeo being inhumane, Pete wrote, When we read or hear that we are inhumane to our animals, there is never a mention of the human animal that has to pay his way after a horse or a bull runs over him. You ought to know about that, Charlie. Many of these people who write about our inhumanities have some rich old dame who owns a poodle. Now, Bede wrote this, not me. I just want everybody to know that. Many of these people who write about our inhumanities have some rich old dame who owns a poodle with manicured toenails and a sweater and are giving their extra money as a tax deduction. These same people think nothing of putting a dog through the torture of trimming his ears down or cutting his tail off because it's fashionable. Now, to his family, he always said, never take yourself serious. Today, your picture is in the newspapers. Tomorrow, your picture will be face up on the bottom of someone's bird cage. And always stand up for what is right, or you'll sit down for everything. On these United States of America, he often quoted Thomas Jefferson. Eternal vigilance is the price of freedom. Leslie, David, and Adrian agreed with their brother Lyle when Lyle said about having Pete Logan for a dad, it was a great adventure. In closing, the Santa Fe, New Mexico paper quoted Pete as saying, I've mostly been arbitrary all my life. Whatever else I may be, when I am finished, they will know I was here. Thank you.
Lovely job. Let me get this for you. And here's the original copy of the all copies. Okay.
I'd like to first of all say thanks to the family, all of our family and friends that we see out there for coming to share this day with my dad. I know you came from a long way away, and since he's not producing this show, you'll not get paid. But I wished I had some of Miss Logan's comments for some of this thing for coming from Pete, but I see a lot of guys out there that I rodeoed with, and I did put down a few notes here, but I won't be able to read them because those guys showed up. I'm not pulling out my reading glasses. That's for you, Gary. I'd like to tell you a few things about my dad, Tommy Steiner. He was born in Austin, Texas in 1926, and immediately the Western lifestyle began. Because his father was, and still is, a cowboy, a rancher, and an all-around just crazy man. He started promoting Wild West shows when my father was very young and had him competing at an early age. My dad learned to ride buffaloes to get his bubblegum money, and that's the truth. After my dad got out of the Air Force and helped us to win World War II, he came back, and his father and he were two of the first members of the Cowboys Turtle Association, which later became the RCA and later became the PRCA. My father was very instrumental also in helping the national finals get started. He supported the very first national finals in Dallas, Texas, and that was back when they didn't have a lot of funds to offer, and I think that has turned into a pretty big event, they tell me. So, in 1948, he lucked out and married the prettiest woman that ever came out of West Texas, and that was Beverly Bunton. That was my mom. They became Steiner Rodeo. They produced between 25 and 30 rodeos a year for over 30 years. Always had a great crew of people working for them that they treated like family, and they were family. Most of the rodeos in the 50s and 60s that I remember as a youngster were first-time rodeos. They were towns and cities that had never seen or had a rodeo. And most of the rodeos that we put on then were those kind of places that now still have successful professional rodeos that just got started in the right way. You know, in the rodeo production field, there's no champion. They don't have a year-end champion, and they don't have a top 15, so you don't really know how you set. So it's all, you're judged on opinions of people. And I guess the committees that hire you. But through my own rodeo travels, I got to see lots of great rodeos produced by lots of great rodeo producers. And in these travels, I found out that what I had grown up around and the rodeo company I grew up around, I never saw a better rodeo at any of the places than the ones that I did grow up around, with more color, class, or better stock. These, and nobody had a better looking woman carrying the American flag. And I'd like to say that our family are very proud of my dad for this day, and we'd like to say congratulations to him for being inducted into this Hall of Fame. And we'd also like to say congratulations to the Hall of Fame, because we believe that you have the greatest rodeo producer of all time. That's my dad. He's the greatest father, Hall of Fame father, Hall of Fame granddad, Hall of Fame rodeo producer, my dad, Tommy Steiner. Thank you, guys.
The flag shall read, Tommy Steiner, stock contractor. A second-generation stock contractor, Steiner began his rodeo career as a 10-year-old doing road tricks off the back of a horse he had trained. The Steiner Rodeo Company was on the road by 1945, one of the first RCA stock contracting companies in Central Texas. Steiner's rodeos were known for their elaborate grand entries, fast, colorful productions, beautiful parade horses, and the finest equipment in stock. The company formed a partnership with the Hollywood cowboy Wild Bill Elliott in the 50s, allowing Steiner to have contact with much larger rodeos. The Steiner Rodeo Company operated on the creed to give 110% effort to the committees, contestants, and spectators. The company has long been known for outstanding stock, including Savage 7, the 1981 Bull of the Year, number 11 Red Lightning, 1978 Bull of the Year, 6 Black 6, 1975 Bull of the Year, and Stormy Weather Bareback Horse of the Year in 1975. More than 400 Steiner animals have been selected for the NFR since its inception in 1959. On April 28, 1929, Austin, Texas, Lone Star Circuit Stock Contract of the Year in 1978. Ladies and gentlemen, Tommy Steiner, Stock Contractor.
Congratulations. You're going to need to sneak up on that microphone real tight so they can hear you.
You guys didn't leave me much to say, except I would like to thank Pete Logan for having us all on Paul Harvey August the 1st. I don't know if y'all knew it or not, but Paul Harvey mentioned every inductee and the Rodeo Hall of Fame on his broadcast. So we have to thank Pete for that. I'm accepting this recognition today, not only for myself, but for everybody that helped me along the way. I had a lot of good people around me. Cajun Kid, Gene and Bobby Clark. I always tried to have a good band at my rodeos. It was all part of a integral factor that rodeos were successful. We all worked at it. There's people like Al Benny from St. Louis. I was scared to death first time I went to St. Louis to the rodeo. Hell, I'd hardly been out of Texas except in the service. Guys like Al Benny, ex-rodeo hands, they were there to help me find hay, get integrated in the community, and help make the rodeos there successful. I learned a long time ago, rodeo's a community. I don't care where you are, it's still a community. I remember one time I was flying Bobby from a rodeo somewhere, and we made a forced landing in Wyoming. I told Bobby, I said, you know, we'll know somebody in this town. And I started looking through the phone book, and sure enough, I found an ex-rodeo hand there and called him up, and he took us out to dinner. Any place you go, there's an ex-rodeo hand there, and they always remember you because they're still your neighbor and your friend. I'd probably, as you know, rodeo's a team effort, and I guess I had the best coach that ever lived, my wife Beverly. Had it not been for her, I wouldn't be here today. She had more to do with the success of our rodeos than I did. Anyway, I've been hoping for a train to come by so I'd have a reason to shut up, but I wasn't so lucky. Well, I'll shut up anyway. I want to thank y'all and appreciate everything.
Our next inductee, Guy Allen, steer roping. For the introductory remarks, Justin McKee.
Just like to say what a privilege it is to be a part of this ceremony today, and what an honor it is to recognize and say a few words about, without a doubt, the greatest steer roper of all time. You know, I thought of that paragraph to open this speech a few days ago, and then I got my rodeo sports news, and Clay Galliard, he outdid me, so I'm gonna steal your quote and start all over. As Clay was talking about Guy Allen winning the Daddy of them all in Cheyenne 2 weeks ago, the first paragraph said that if life were more fair, the PRCA Rodeo Media Guide would have an entire section devoted to Guy Allen. Then the caption would read, Guy Allen, best steer roper in history, period. See also candidates for best rodeo athletes of the century. That says a lot about the man we're going to induct into the Hall of Fame today, and I got to tell you that I am pretty excited to be here for another reason, because as most of you know that know Guy, he's not one that likes to stick his chest out. He's not one that likes to give elaborate speeches, even though he's a lot better at that than he realizes he is. But it gives me the opportunity to get back at him as he's wondering what I'm going to say, and thinking of the things that might come out in front of a lot of people he'd just soon not know about it. But so I had the opportunity to see him sweat a little bit, and it does my heart good for one reason. The simple fact is that 2 or 4 weeks out of the year, my wife Jeannie and I will go down to Lovington, and between announcing rodeos, we'll stop there and rope and practice the steer open, and he sure gets a kick out of seeing me sweat out in the practice arena. And I guarantee you, when you practice with Guy Allen, you better be in shape, because if you're not, and especially if Bucky Hefner's there, you're going to find yourself bent over the fence, losing your lunch, not able to eat till the next day. So he enjoys seeing me sweat, and I'm not going to say anything, so you don't have to sweat today, Guy. But I just had to do that to you. But ladies and gentlemen, there was something that was mentioned in the introduction of Pete Logan also that made me think of Guy Allen and his diversified skills. Greatest steer roper, we all know that. But he too is a movie star. And I'd forgot all about that until just a few minutes ago. And many of you may not realize it, but he was in a movie with Willie George and Kenneth Copeland. It was a Western, and of course many of you realize the ministry that they have is a kids ministry. They have a big church camp down in northeast Oklahoma, and they had Guy as one of the outlaws in one of these movies. The trouble they had with Guy is they couldn't keep him from smiling all the time. He just didn't look mean enough to be a bad guy, but he was. And another fact I'd like to point out is he gave a number of his world champion saddles to that group and other organizations that had horses for people to ride. And there's a lot of kids down there that's riding the horse for the first time that's riding a world champion steer open saddle. It all started in 1977. Guy first qualified for the national finals steer roping at age 19. He worked his way into that first qualification in the top 15 with some of the biggest names the steer roping has ever known. 12 out of the top 15 had 20-plus years experience on Guy. 6 were former world champions. And one man was his teacher, his father, and the man who taught him everything that he knew, James Allen. The world champs included Kenny Call, Charles Good, Roy Thompson, Walter Arnold, Olin Young, and the man that he patterned his roping after since he was a little boy, the roper that he idolized the most, Sonny Davis. It was perhaps this competition that set the tone for the next 20 years. That year, at age 19, Guy Allen became the youngest ever world champion in steer roping history. This coming November, Guy will compete at his 20th consecutive national finals steer roping at the Lazy E in Guthrie. And I'm sure there'll be people that are sitting in the stands as they have all over the country and watched him rope and watching the talent and amazement as we all have and saying, how can this happen? How can he be so dominant? How can he win twice as much money as the guy who is a runner-up to the World Championship for the last 3 years nearly? Some people may not know Guy and say, well, he's the luckiest roper I've ever seen. Others will just hold their hand in the air and say, he's just some type of freak of nature. I don't know. He is amazing. But let me shed some light on the real reason Guy Allen is the greatest steer roper of all time. It wasn't always easy for Guy. He worked his way to the top in roping, and it was a very hard road. And he started at a very early age. In fact, putting the history together for Guy Allen, the Guy Allen story for you, I kept saying to myself, I've heard this. I have heard this story somewhere before about somebody else. And it finally dawned on me. Hank Williams Jr. wrote a song about himself called Born to Boogie, about how he had a father that taught him how to play, and he had the opportunity, had the will and desire, and he started out when he was 4 years old. Before he could walk and before he could talk, he had a guitar in his hand, and then he had his own band. And I'm thinking, the age is paralleled to Guy Allen's roping career. So if you would, allow me the opportunity to change the lyrics a little bit. And I changed the words to fit a young steer roper that was definitely born to boogie. And if Hank Jr. would have done this, I'm sure he would have had a #1 hit about Guy Allen. Guy's mama met his daddy down in Santa Ana. His dad's name is James and his mom's name Ann. Born in the bayou on the Texas line, they lived in Louisiana, raised on jambalaya. Before he could walk, he had a rope in his hand, and before he could talk, he had an extended cab. He went on the road when he was 8 years old, and when he turned 15, he was stealing the show. A lot to learn, and he didn't even realize the girls were pretty. Didn't take him long to learn that he was born to boogie. When he was 19, he won a new wood. He beat Olin and Sonny and Charlie Good. Roping as hot as a California sun, a cowboy Cadillac, having too much fun. Now, they were having the finals up in Laramie, and then they started building the Lazy E. They said, Ed Gaylord, this is a boy we've been telling you about. Ed lit a cigar, and he stuck his hand out. He said, son, we're going to make a star out of you. We're going to add 50,000 too. His mama was sure glad to get in from the cool. He's won the money, and they ought to make a movie about the legendary steer roper that was born to boogie. And boogie he has. He has revolutionized steer roping. He has increased the times 3, 4, and 5 seconds, at least. The Lord did bless Guy with some athletic ability, but most importantly, he blessed him with a boatload of desire. It also helped to have a dad who was in the practice pen every day. But James will tell you that Guy was there because he wanted to be. He'll also tell you that he had the desire, the want to, the try, and the determination to be the best at a young age. So practice he did. When Guy was around 12, he cut the end of his fingers off his right hand, but that didn't slow him down a bit. He stayed in the practice pen every day. He just roped left-handed. And I'll bet you that today, if he had to rope left-handed, he would still make the top 15 if he had to. When he's 18, at a roping school in Eagle Pass, Texas, his dad was putting on, Guy tied down over 100 steers on a horse in one day. And God only knows for sure, but few would argue that Guy has probably roped more steers in his lifetime than the other top 14 steer ropers combined. Now, some skeptics might be right. Guy is lucky. He has been lucky. And the more he's practiced, the luckier he's got. He team roped at open rodeos from age 8 to 14. Guy roped and tied his first steer down at age 12. And a few months after that event, Walter Arnold was there at the ranch and was watching him practice on a 3-year-old that Guy had trained himself. And right then, Walter said, that boy's going to be a world champion someday. Guy was 13 years old. At age 17, there was only one rodeo that he could fill his permit on. On the way to Sheridan, his dad and he stopped in Denver at the PRCA headquarters, bought his permit. The rest of the rodeos, Cheyenne, Pendleton, you had to be a card member. But at 17, the only rodeo he could fill it, he did it. He won second, and the rest, as they say, is history. He's demolished every record in the PRCA steer roping event. The youngest world champion at 19, world's fastest time 3 times at 8.4. Plus a 7.7 did he at Coleman, Texas at an invitational roping this year in the steer roping. The fastest 10-head average at the national finals with 144 on 10 head. He won over $67,000 last year to break his own singles earnings record. He's won the most world titles with 10, the only man to win 5 steer roping titles in a row, the most consecutive qualifications to the national final steer roping, and the list goes on, including 2 weeks ago for the first time winning the Cheyenne Frontier Days. Today, we honor, though, more than a great steer roper, more than a great athlete. We honor his humility that is almost unheard of today. And in a world full of sports superstars that are constantly letting us down as role models, it's refreshing to see the opportunity for our sons and daughters to look up to a man like Guy Allen. He is a born-again believer in Jesus Christ, and he carries with him his Christian values wherever he goes. He loves his wife and family, and when it comes to parents, Guy and Krill Allen, they're the tops. You don't have to stay at their house long enough to know that C.G. and Sadie are 2 of the most well-mannered young ladies that I've ever been around. They can handle the rope pretty good, too. C.G. at age 12 got to tie her first steer down with her grandpa here this summer, by the way. I'd like to borrow a quote about Guy from 7-time world champion team roper Clay O'Brien Cooper in an article written by Kendra Santos that sums up the kind of man that we are here to honor today. Cooper said, and I quote, "The reason he's a good roper is because of the certain qualities that have nothing to do with his roping. Guy Allen has integrity, humility, perseverance. He's a better person than he is a steer roper, and he's undoubtedly the greatest steer roper that will ever live. Ladies and gentlemen, my hero, 10 times world champion, the legend, and he's still going, Guy Allen."
The plaque shall read, Guy Allen steer roping. Allen began his early career at the age of 7, traveling with his father to ropings. By the time he was 13, he was an accomplished steer roper. He joined the association at age 16 and filled his permit in just 1 month. Allen went to his first NFSR at the age of 19 and brought home the world title. He now holds the record for the most world championships won, not just in his event, but in any individual event. Allen's cowboy friends call him the legend. They respect and admire his steer roping talent, unrivaled by any steer roper in rodeo history. But they also respect Guy Allen as a man with integrity, humility, and perseverance. To me, what is the most important is to live a life where I'm a good husband, a good dad, a good person, and an honest person who can help somebody. I would like to be known as one of the best steer ropers ever. The championships don't automatically do that. I want to be known for doing my best, for really trying on every turn. Letting the ability speak for itself, that's Guy Allen's way. Born September 5th, 1958 in Shoshone, Louisiana, world champion steer roper, 1977, 1980, 82, 84, 89, 91, 92, 93, 94, and 95. Ladies and gentlemen, Guy Allen, steer roper.
Does anyone know where the restroom is? It's an honor for me to be here, and I sure hope a train will come by pretty quick. But it's special to me to go up in this Hall of Fame with a lot of guys that I went to the fence to watch. And I'm not really accepted just for myself. There's a lot of people involved, and of course my mom and dad and my sisters, my brothers, a couple of people from Oklahoma, my wife and my girls. It's just an honor. I don't really know how to really say how it feels to be in a Hall of Fame. You read about it in the papers with baseball players and football players, but it's a dream that I've always wanted to become, was to be in a Hall of Fame and to be known as one of the great. Sonny Davis was probably my hero. He seemed like he either won first or didn't place. And one time him and my dad, they told me that I'd won, I don't remember where it was at, that I'd won 2 or 3 go-rounds and there was one left, and they said if I'd win all the go-rounds, the average would take care of itself. So that's kind of the way I went at it. I thank my dad for all the horses and cattle that he gave me to ride. When things wasn't going right for me and my brother, when he would beat me, I'd tell my dad I needed that horse that my brother was riding. When I was in school, when I go practice, I'd tell her that, Mom, I got to read that book and do a book report tomorrow. She would do it, and she'd give me the report. I barely got out of high school, not because of her, but maybe I didn't read that book well enough. My sisters, my older sister, she'd ride horses and exercise for me, and could rope too. She rode one of my horses when I was pretty young, and she was breakaway roping, and I got where I couldn't get a dolly. I think it was just because I wasn't roping very good. And I told her, my dad, she needed to get off of that one where I could have him. My younger sister, I guess all the guys at the rodeo, they say I sleep all the time. I think it's because of her. When we would travel, she went with me and my dad and Mom, and my mom was carrying the mail, but my younger sister, she's older than I am, would go, and she would drive for me. And my dad, and they come out with them 2-seater pickups, my dad says, and they invented them for me because that back seat was mine. And my brother, there's special members with me and him roping and practicing together. I had some people in Oklahoma that when things were pretty tight and tough, they told me to come up and they'd help me out. So he's a veterinarian, and he's got a son-in-law that takes care of everything. So he could help me rope, and his son-in-law would open the gate for me and take care of all the book work, and I run around and help him do some things that I really appreciate him. My family, my wife, the years that we've been together for 15 years, the support that she gives me when things are not going very good, and I'll call in and tell her, and she'll tell me she's not going to listen to it, and everything like that. My girls, CG and Sadie, they're special to me. I want to be a dad like mine was, that I can help them like he did me. but it's an honor for me to be here, to be inducted in the Hall of Fame. I want to thank the people that nominated me or voted on me or chose me, however it worked, because it is an honor, and I want to thank you, and most of all, thank God for the ability He's given me. Thank you.
Our next inductee, John W. Jones, Jr., steer wrestling. For the introduction, Mike Roberts.
The father-son team that you all know, the rookie and the rookie team that you all know. And to talk about a situation where, let's say that the statistics will be available to you everywhere you look on John W. Jones Jr. And so I'm not going to talk about statistics today. I'm going to talk about the man. I've lived my entire life believing that anything that you do, any task you take, that's gratifying, that's proud-making, is hard to do. And John W. Jones Jr. has given me the first task like that that's sure enough proud-making and gratifying, but it's damned easy to do. And Johnny, is the one that's made it easy. On August the 13th, 1960, Joanne Jones gave birth to a little red, skinny spider. And I've known Johnny through childhood. When he walked around on his tiptoes, we said that's what made his legs so strong. Walked around on his tiptoes all the time. And as a teenager, when he wanted to play football and baseball and basketball, and then as he started to show up at the practice arena, and there I was showing great intelligence by saying to everybody around, well, he'll probably rope calves real good, but he'll never be big enough to bulldog. No question about that. There I am, brilliant again. It's an honor and a privilege to present to you John W. Jones for induction into the PRCA Hall of Fame. Congratulations, PRCA. You're pro-rodeo and you're proactive. You're proactive because you've reached out to honor achievement and excellence when it's young and when it's got time to show that honor for a long period of time to come. And why would you do that? I can tell you why they would do that. That's because their mission statement says to enhance the image of our sport. And what better way to enhance the image of your sport than to create positive role models that are young enough to be role models for a long period of time to come. You look at, it's hard for me to think about Johnny Jones as a role model because he's so young, but you look at his daughters, Kate and Shani down there, and his wife Sherry, and you'll know he's a role model, and you'll know now that he's a role model to thousands of young people all over the United States. And yeah, everybody says he was bred right. By a world champion bulldogger. But we in the horse business know that it's the mare that makes the difference. Joanne's the reason for this excellence. There's no doubt about it. Every sport that you come by is trying to make its image as a family-oriented sport. Why do you suppose that is? Because it sells more tickets. And you look around at these other sports, and all I got to say is you let them keep dyeing their hair green, pitching them fits on the courts, winding up in the other courts, and it'll be the public of the United States who will decide who they want their kids to follow. John W. Jones Jr. epitomizes decency, and integrity. There are hundreds of young people that started their career, whatever that career might have been, in the Jones arena, and it started out with his dad doing that sort of thing, and then Johnny picking it up later on. And when Johnny was growing up, to nurture his role as a role model, you could find people that called their house a second home, like Jack Roddy, Lex Conley, Sherman Sullins, Walter Wyatt, Warren Worthier, Dean Oliver, Bob Maynard, Jim Houston, Ed Galimba, Jim Rodriguez Jr., and many others. And if you talk to his entire family, you will find the following. John W. Jones Jr. is a perfect son. John W. Jones Jr. is a perfect husband. And sure enough, a perfect father. Now then, I did speak to Sandra last night, and she said that he was a near perfect brother, except the time that he burned her playhouse down. All of us have faults, each and every one of us. But I'm going to tell you something right now. You pull your hat down and you work hard before you'll find any faults in Johnny Jones. John W. Jones Jr. was probably born to fulfill the mission statement of the PRCA Hall of Fame. Congratulations, PRCA. You're proactive. Go clone it. You clone him, and you get some more, and you'll be well ahead of the pack. I give you John W. Jones, Jr.
Gentlemen, we know you have to go. Thank you for being a part of today. We really appreciate your contribution. The plaque shall read, John W. Jones, Steer Wrestling. Despite a strong family rodeo tradition, Jones did not become interested in the sport until the age of 15, preferring to spend his time in football, baseball, and basketball. When he decided to rodeo, he quickly developed the winning skills. He was the California High School Rodeo Association calf roper and steer roping wrestling champion in 1977 and 78, the NIRA West Coast Steer Wrestling champion in 79, and contested at the NIRA Finals 3 times. Jones bought his association permit in 1980 and was named the PRCA Rookie of the Year in 1981. He and his father are the first duo to both be Rookie of the Year and World Champions in the same event. Steer wrestling has always been his premier event, 10 trips to the NFR with an average win in 88, even though he twice qualified for the NFR in calf roping. Despite his successful career of going down the road, Jones really never considered a long-term rodeo career. He still competes occasionally, but most of his time is now spent on the family's coastal dairy farm and cattle ranch in Morro Bay, California. From August 13, 1960, Santa Maria, California, world champion steer wrestler, 1984, 1988, 1989. Ladies and gentlemen, John W. Jones Jr., steer wrestler.
Thank you. When Pat Hildebrand called my wife, and I was at the Houston Rodeo, and she called down there and gave me the message, my wife did, and she told me to sit down, and first thing that came to my mind, that I was kind of in shock. I felt really honored that they would consider me for the Hall. And after that, I felt proud, to be in there with my dad and all the people that I idolized, through the years of growing up and through the sport of rodeo. And it was funny, the first thing that came to my mind after I got through that was the very first junior rodeo that I went to. And I was entered in five timed events, and I don't even recall which ones they were. And the thing that I remember about it the most was the announcer, the lady that was up there. She says, "Next up, John W. Jones Jr., And then she'd go, "No time for John W. Jones Jr." And she did that 5 times, and that just kind of sunk in my head. And it's funny how it's made a full turn since then and stuff. There's 2 things that kind of pushed me towards the timed event when I when I was real little, about 6 years old. A friend of my dad's came by. His name was Leon Adams, and he had those white Bramer bulls with the big golden knobs on their horns and stuff, and I was pretty fascinated with that. And for some reason, he was a contract in the contract business of contract personnel who did the acts during the rodeo, and he rode these Bramer bulls and stuff. And for some reason, I thought he was a bullfighter. And after he had left, he was there for a week or so, and after he'd left, I was just fascinated with him, and I wanted to change my name for a couple weeks to Leon Adams. I just wanted to be Leon Adams, and I wanted to be a bullfighter. So I went around there for a few weeks, and a few of my friends came over, and I decided I'll show them how tough I was and that I was going to be a bullfighter someday. And my dad had this steer that had got hurt, and he had him back behind the barn, and I took all my friends back there and had my little towel with me, and I strolled out there and I stuck it out and went, "Toro, Toro, Toro." And this steer turned around and came running right at me. And about that time, it didn't look like a real good situation, so I turned around and started running, and I chucked the towel and I was screaming, "I don't want to be Leon Adams anymore!" Boom! And as he hit me going out the fence. And that's when I decided I didn't want to be a bullfighter anymore. So I decided I thought I'd become a bull rider if I couldn't fight him. And it didn't take me very long to see how small my heart was. When the one summer that I stayed at Monty and Pat Roberts' place, and he had a feedlot down there where he would buck all these steers, and when they buck, he'd keep in a certain pen down there, and his son Marty would ride with us, and didn't take very long where we were hiding in the barn when it was time to go ride these steers and stuff, and so we ended up kind of getting out of it. But the only thing I could never figure was that Marty must not have been able to play hide and seek very good, because after I left, his dad found him quite a few times, and he became a pretty darn good bull rider. I get to stand up here today and take all the credit, or a lot of it, and there's a lot of people that helped me out down the road. And when I first started out, there's guys like Art Cochran, who spent many hours in a practice pen helping me drilling the fundamentals to us, letting us ride his horse from the very beginning. Those kind of things make for a solid foundation. Guys like Jack Roddy that I spent some summers with, who helped me with my confidence. And everybody knows that rodeo has a lot to do in with the mental game, and he taught me a lot about that. Jimmy Rodriguez Jr., who helped me a lot with my scorn and roping. I credit him big time with that. When I was about pretty young, I got bucked off a horse, and I wanted nothing to do with him for quite some time. I'd rather take a beating than ride one. And my dad asked me to ride his horses, and I really didn't care to, but I would. And they had to wonder if I ever would rodeo or even try. They always supplied the opportunity for me. If I wanted to do it, that was fine, and they knew that if they pushed me at that point, that I'd probably go further away from it. So they were pretty smart in the sense that they always supplied the opportunity, and they let me decide that I wanted to do it, because that's what any rodeo athlete, you have to want to do it before you can become or get to where you want to go. My mom and dad found horses for me when I was little, and believe me, nowadays I know that it's hard to find those kind of horses for your kids, being that I'm at that stage right now. So that took a lot of effort. That I had steers there for me to practice with, and my mom, when I was on the road, took care of my books. My sister gave me moral support. It was just kind of a family effort, and I said this one time when I was in high school, and I caught a lot of flack for it, but I feel I had the advantage of working with the best, and that was my dad. He helped me tremendously. He had a great technique. He had great mental confidence, and he said not to worry about things that happened. Go on, that one's over. Learn from that experience and go to the next ones. Also, I'd like, when you first start out, there's always a guide, somebody that's always there to practice with. Oh, I love this train. It's great. it's always nice to have somebody that you start out with, and Tom Switzer was that guy that had as much try as anybody I've ever known. He was always there to when it was time to practice, and we pushed each other, and I think without his help, and him and I matching or pushing each other and running millions and millions of steers, it seems like, through the years, that I don't think that, I'd probably be standing up here without his help. My rookie year, I was fortunate enough to travel with a guy by the name of Chris Libert, who was an all-around champion, I believe, in '82. He showed me the ropes, how to enter, which is a large part of it, how to get there, having a winning attitude, and going to the next one. He liked to ruin me the first full year that I went, when we went to 180 some rodeos, and I was kind of ready to quit after that. But the best thing that ever happened was the 100 rodeo rule. In the mid-'80s, I was fortunate enough to be drafted by the Wrangler team, and being a nice guy that I am, I thought I'd call them up this year and ask them, since I was an endorsee, if they had anything that they'd like me to wear here apparel-wise. And Greg Tuza said that no, anything was fine, just make sure you wear clean underwear. And I can assure you, Greg, they were clean before I got up here. And I'd really like to thank my wife, Sherry, who spent many, many hours behind the wheel driving to the rodeos, giving moral support, knocking me down a few notches or two when I was feeling too good, and supporting me when I wasn't doing good, telling me to get off my butt, and so on and so forth. But I can remember times driving down the road, we'd be so tired, and that's one of the hardest things that kills you in the rodeo business, is all the miles that you drive. It's just, if you could just be there and compete, that would be great, but the miles of getting there, you're kind of like a truck driver. And I was fortunate enough to be able to drive with my best friend, my wife, and it was great to see the country, go through all the experiences with her, and I really appreciate that a lot. And as the years came on, I had two fine children, Katie and Shannon, who were my best supporters. They were sure uplifting all the time. Anytime, even if I went out there and got mucked out, run over and stomped, and my shirt tore off, they were right there saying, "Nice run, Dad, nice run." And you kind of had to giggle about it and say, "Yeah, it just made you smile." So I really appreciate that. Another guy that helped me a lot was Alfalfa Feddersen, who I had a lot of confidence in. Every championship that I did win, he was there on the other side. There before you go in the arena, he was always pumping you, getting you ready to go. Sometimes you felt like turning over there and saying, "Shut up, Alf." But, he made you feel like you could tear a phone book in half before you got in the arena, and that was just outstanding. And I really appreciate the job he did for me all those years, and being able to ride his horse Catfish. He was a heck of a horse. I'd really like to thank all the people that came today. I know it was a long ways for everybody to come, for some, and it really means a lot to me that you were here, and it's just an honor to see you guys here, because a lot of you helped me a long ways down the road, and I sure appreciate that. And I'd just like to end it by saying that I might not be monetarily rich, but through the years, rodeo's opened a lot of doors, and I've seen a lot of things and experienced a lot of stuff. And all the friends that I've made, I consider myself the richest guy in the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you for doing that. You did a great job. You really did. Congratulations.
Our next inductee, Charlie Sampson, bull riding. Introduction, Murtis Gagnon. Murtis.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm glad to be here today to put my best friend in the Hall of Fame. It's a little easy for him. It was when I started. When I started, a lot of rodeos I'd go to, they made me ride out the rodeo, which was good because I went anyhow. And I know that being a good friend, you can make it in life. I appreciate Mr. Thomas Steiner, and also another good friend of mine out there. If you're in his rodeo, he always said, if you're good enough to enter, you're good to ride in my rodeo. You don't have to ride out the rodeo. he could ride during my rodeo. And so some good friends of mine, Willie Thomas and Freddie Gardner, they was rodeo winning for me. So they said, man, I want to know why I watched the national final on TV, I could never see no black. So I said, they won't let you go. I said, what you mean they won't let you go? So they won't let you go. I said, well, I'm going to bear down and try and see could I go. So 61, I joined the RCA, and I went to ride, and I said, well, listen, what I want to do. So I went back driving a truck, which is my hobby. So 64, I talked back to him again. They said, man, I said, hey, man, I'm going. So I buried down in 64 and went to the national final last year at Los Angeles, California. So really don't know, I was a bullfighter before I was a bull rider. And I used to fight bulls for the RCA, and when they let me go first, I put my shoes off and fight bulls for the rest cowboys, take care of them. So we used to go to California all the time, so go down to the horse stable. So some of my friends said, man, there's this little guy named Pee Wee showing to ride bulls. I looked around where he was, so short, you know. So I see him, and every time I'd be on my shoes, and he'd help me around. And so I said, man, you want to ride bulls? He said, yeah. I said, well, I'll tell you what. I said, I didn't get a good education. I said, if you go finish school, I'll help you. So he went and finished school, and he come back and help me to get started. So I went on. So I went back to driving truck. So the first year he went in 68, it was 82. He called me and said, Murtis, I said, what? He said, man, I made national final. I said, boy, I ain't gonna drive no truck, I'll be there. So I went there and put a rope for him the first year he won the world. So then I went on, and he called me and told me, he said, man, I'm gonna be inducted in the Hall of Fame. He was crying. I said, man, what's wrong with you? Oh, man, I can't hardly, that's what's wrong, buddy. Man, they're gonna induct me in the Hall of Fame. I said, don't worry. I said, I'll be there. So I called my brother and my son. They want to know, man, what's the matter? I said, man, Charlie is going to be inducted in the Hall of Fame, and you want me to be with him. He said, well, brother, I'm going to ride with you. And we all come up here to induct in the Hall of Fame. So he was one of my hard best. And what happened to me, like I say, he used to fight me all the time. You know, he was a great kid. He's a guy that you could talk to. He wouldn't get mad. You couldn't make him mad. You know, I tell him, man, he said, he said, I want to go. And there we was. They said it couldn't be done. We proved it could be done. But folks like Mr. W. Jones, when I was in California, he used to like, where are you going tonight, Mertz? I said, well, I don't know. He said, man, just come right out to my house. I used to go out to his house and stay with him and his son, you know. His son was a little kid like that, and they used to go out to his house all the time. And here we is. I know it could be done. So the Hall of Fame, everything, I appreciate it. Let me come to this speech. Thank you.
The Black Chivalry, Charles Sampson Bull Riding. A 1993 Timex watch advertising campaign used Charlie Sampson as an example of it takes a licking and keeps on ticking. His 16-year career became as well known for his wrecks as his championships. Sampson started riding ponies and steers at Watts, California stable in Stockton, where he met some cowboys who helped him begin a rodeo career. He went on to become a role model in rodeo, talented and charismatic, both in and out of the arena. A near-fatal injury during the 1983 Presidential Command performance, rodeo left Sampson with shattering head injuries. The doctor's prognosis, good for recovery and future in rodeo. Participation in 1983 finals not recommended without a special facial protection. That protection became the familiar shot of Charlie Sampson coming out of the chute wearing a lacrosse helmet. Career wins include the bull riding and the territory circuit finals in 85, 86, and 93, the Sierra Circuit in 84, the Calgary bonus round twice, the George Paul Memorial twice, Pendleton, and Salinas. Sampson retired from the chutes at the 1994 Dodge National Circuit Finals Rodeo. Born July 2nd, 1957 in Los Angeles, California. World Champion Bull Rider, 1982. Ladies and gentlemen, Charlie Sampson Bull Riding.
Big guy.
Well, I wrote some notes down here, so I'll make sure I won't forget what to say. First thing I want to say, this is a great day. I learned that from the great Gary LeFew. I'm also thankful today to have so many friends and family here And I know that I'm blessed because there's people that have supported me. God, He has gave me the courage to get up here right now and try to remember all the people have helped me over the year. I want to thank the PRCA staff because I would call the PRCA and they would tell me I had a fine. I said, well, please bear with me, I'm gonna send that money. And they said, okay, we'll get in here by 12 o'clock tomorrow. So I rushed and got the money in here. I want to thank the ProRodeo Hall of Fame committee for selecting me as a inductee this year. I didn't know that I was going to be an inductee coming from Watts, California. I didn't know anything about a World Championship. I didn't know anything about the Hall of Fame, but here I am in the Hall of Fame, you know, with all the greats. I want to thank my mom for not quitting that 11 kid. I'm an 11th child out of 13. Most people don't have that many kids, but Mom, thank you for continuing your mothership. You know, my sisters, they used to give me a hard time when I was a kid growing up. They wouldn't let me come through the door because I smelled like the horses from cleaning out stalls. So I always remember my sister saying, you can't come in, you know, until you take those shoes off, until you take those that jacket off, because you smell like horses. So here I am, sis. More important, I want to thank my wife because she's been through a lot. You know, she's been through a lot of pain. That was somebody's told me. I said, yeah, honey, every time I got hurt, I felt for you. She provided me with 2 beautiful baby boys. I call them monster kids, and anybody have a 8 and 11-year-old, they know they got monster children. You know, Murtis Dykeman, you bet, he was a big inspiration to me. Growing up in Los Angeles, working at the horse stables, and just wanting to be a team roper, and eventually became a steer rider after riding those steers, and knowing that when Murtis came through the stables, you know, he was a true cowboy. He traveled around the country, you know, riding bulls. And I thought at that time, that's what I want to do. I want to be just like Murtis, going to the rodeo instead of riding, you know, locally. But after the inspiration from Murtis, you know, I got into riding bulls and I rode, and, you know, he was my incentive, but I still needed some help. And I think if it wasn't for Gary LeFew helping me being the positive person I am, I'm gonna have to credit Gary more than a lot of people, because if it wasn't for his inspiring and confidence and basically teaching me how to win. You learn how to ride just by getting on and falling off, but it's hard to actually know how do you win. And Gary LeFew instilled that winning in me. He instilled every day is a great day. So people look at me and say, Charles, how come you're so happy? How come you're so cheerful? Because you come from the school of Gary LeFew. First thing you learn how to say it's a great day, and you feel that in the heart. So I want to give my love and thanks to Murtis and Gary for all their support and inspiration. You know, I had some of the best traveling partners in the world. I rodeoed with Ted Newts in 1981. We went on, when I say we, I went on to win the World Championship in 82, and he went on to win the championship in 85. If it wasn't for a great traveling partner, I tell you what, I don't think I would have made it. You know, Robbie Christie, he's gone to a better place. He was also one of my traveling partners. He was the 1981 Rookie of the Year, and I love Robbie. Irvin Williams, one of my traveling partners. I got so many notes here. I just want to make sure that I get them all out and try to give everybody their proper credit. The sponsors, I know, and Rodeo know, and the committees know that if it wasn't for the sponsors, we wouldn't look near as good in the arena. Sponsors put their beautiful banners. You know, they make that arena dressy, made it look like you were at a show itself. You know, Wrangler, you bet they're the best. They're the #1 sponsor in rodeo. And you look at the Cowboys today, and you wonder why they look so good, because they all got on Wrangler. If they don't, they're not looking that good. Coors, they was a big sponsor of rodeo. I was the Coors champion, so that was a nice honor. I was the Cowboy Fan of the Year. If it wasn't for the fan and Coors having that recognition for the Cowboys, the combination of both, I don't think I would have received that award. Also want to thank Rodeo America. because, you know, those NFR jackets, I tell you what, you talking about a proud week. I was actually somebody for a week. You rodeo all year long, and you go to those rodeos, and you gotta go through all the changes, you know, to get through the rodeo. You travel, you know, 12 hours to get to the rodeo, and your rodeo card is in the back. And well, you gotta have your rodeo card. Well, sir, I got a bull in the chute. I'm late. Well, you can't get in the gate unless you show that rodeo card. So, you know, I was nobody at an average rodeo, but when I got to the national finals, I put that NFR jacket on. They knew that I was a participator, and I became somebody for a week. So it was a nice honor to receive the Rodeo America jacket. Justin, if it wasn't for them, I don't know how I would have rode after the 1983 incident that I had at the Presidential Rodeo, because they provided more tape than I don't even know if they still have any tape out there. I quit rodeo. You know, I can also say that I also had the privilege of being at some of the best rodeos in the world, and I never boast about the things that I accomplished, you know, the rodeos that I won. Just like Commissioner Cryer said, you know, I won this rodeo, I won that rodeo. But I think my most prestige rodeo was the Houston Astrodome. I won a buckle, a bronze, and a saddle in one rodeo. I thought, wow, man, this is big time here. You know, I couldn't even carry all that stuff in my car because I had to rent a car, a little Datsun, and couldn't handle my saddle. But the rodeos that I've been to are by far the reason that I rodeoed for so long. I rodeoed for I always had a purpose of riding bulls. That's what I learned in the Fuse School also. What's your purpose? In me, Charles, that bull may not buck for that cowboy, but if you believe, he will buck for you. And I would go to rodeos knowing that it was a big rodeo, but the bull wasn't the best, but my belief made me win. So thank the rodeo committees for having such a great rodeo. Rodeo announcer like Pete Logan, I had the privilege of having him announce me at San Antonio, Texas, when I won it. And Pete, you know, like I said, he wasn't the Bob Tallman, the Randy Corley that we know. You know, he wasn't the hyper guy. But when Charles Sampson name was mentioned, boy, he brought a little chill in my spine, and to where I knew I had to bear down, because Pete Logan said, "Charles Sampson, ladies and gentlemen, he's up now." And I was like, well, I better get out of here. The rodeo secretary, we all know, before we get to a rodeo, we got to deal with the gate man. That's one thing. But that secretary is the most important person that we have to face. And they go through so much, but they still smile at you. And sometimes we put them through a lot. And I just want to tell them, sorry for being late with my entry fees, but thanks for the smile all the time. The bullfighters, you know that most bull riders are not going to ride a bull if it's not a bullfighter in the arena, unless he's on a dairy cow. But if it wasn't for the bullfighters and the barrel man, tell you what, bull riders wouldn't get in the arena. So thank the bullfighters. Stock contractors, thank you guys for all the great bulls. They said I was a good rider. Well, no rider is better than the stock that he get on. Everybody know that, you know, you can talk about you rode this bull, you rode that bull, but I can honestly say I rode some of the best because I rode some of Tommy Steiner bulls. So thank you, Tommy, for your great bulls and your tribute to my championship. The year I won the championship, I did good at Houston. I did good on one of your bulls also. You know, like I said, there's a lot of friends that came here from all over the country to be part of this festivity, and we appreciate you all for traveling this far. I also have special friends that I have been fortunate enough to meet over the years, and I don't know very many Hall of Famers, but I got a special friend here that's a Hall of Famer, Gills. He's here today to support me, and I appreciate you for being here, Gil. I love sports, and I love football, I love baseball, and I got my good friend Goose Gossett, Rich Gossett. He's here, and if anybody knows anything about baseball, I don't know if Rich is in the Hall of Fame, but Rich you'll be up here saying the same thing I am someday, thanking everybody for inducting me. Rich, glad you're here. Since I retired in 84, people ask me, do I miss it? You bet I miss it. I rode bulls for 20 years. I traveled to towns and I didn't know what a rodeo was, but people, you would ask, where's the rodeo at? And they would say, oh, you go down this road and you turn left here, you turn right there. They said, well, you need a ride? I said, well, by the way, yeah. So people would take me to the rodeo. That's how rodeo fans are. That's how rodeo people are. So, it's a great honor to be part of this family. And here I am, I'm accepting this award for the guys that didn't see in themselves as a Hall of Famer. Johnny Shea, he lost his life in an accident at a bull riding. Who knows if he wouldn't be here? So, Johnny, I'm accepting this award in your honor. Jimmy Vance, Mike Mason, these are all fallen cowboys, bullfighters, Stan Williams. So, these people, you don't think about them because they're not a Charles Sampson or a Guy Allen or a Scamper. But to us, we know they are. If it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be up here, thanking you guys, because I always heard this one saying, it's the little people that make the big people look so good. So the little people, you guys are here with me. And most of all, since my retirement, if it wasn't for bull riders only, Wrangler bull riders only, I tell you what, I would be a lost soul. Rodeo is something that I've done for all my life, and the Wrangler Bull Riders Only Tour keeps me involved out there with the media, keeps me involved out there with my fans. They get to see me on TV doing Charlie's Choice, so I'm really thankful to be involved with their organization. Last but not least, I got to thank my doctors. If it wasn't for them patching me up all them years, I tell you what, it would just be phenomenal how could a person ride a bull. My doctor told me in 1983, I broke my leg in Yakima, Washington, in 5 different places. I was like 13th, or 12th or 13th for the finals. So I went to my doctor in Ellensburg. So get there and he did emergency surgery on me. I woke up kind of groggy. I said, Doc, how'd it look? He said, oh, I tell you what, Charles, the surgery went fine. You did good. I said, oh, great. Am I going to be able to ride at the finals? He said, Charles, wait a minute. I just did 8 hours of surgery on your leg. You can't think about the finals. I said, yes, Doc, I made the finals, and I got to be there. He said, well, call me about another month and a half. So I called him about a month and a half and told him everything was lined up. He made up a special brace for my ankle, and I told him that Justin Hiller is going to be there, the special brace. I think I should be able to ride a bull. He said, well, good luck. Then when I retired, I told him, I said, Doc, I'm quitting riding bulls. I'm done, I'll quit. He said, Charles, you ain't never quit. I said, well, Doc, I'm not gonna ride bulls anymore. He said, Charles, you never quit, you just retired. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm retired from riding bulls, and here I am in the Hall of Fame, and I'm just happy to be here.
Good job. Well done. Grab your plaque, take it with you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have just a couple announcements and then we'll close our ceremonies for today. First of all, I'd like to personally congratulate and thank these lovely ladies, these queens over here for all their help today. We really appreciate it and thank you for coming from so far to be a part of these ceremonies today. Thank you very much.